Today, we're counting down 13 weird facts you didn't know about the Brady Bunch. 6 kids, 2 parents, 1 housekeeper, and a dog named Tiger. Life, somehow, made total sense. The Brady Bunch premiered in September of 1969, and for 5 seasons, it gave America a version of family life that was warm, slightly chaotic, and completely irresistible. It ran until 1974, spawned spin-offs, TV movies, and a feature film, and it never really left us. So let's get into it. Number 13. The network almost killed it before it started. Here's something that'll make you appreciate the show a little different. ABC didn't exactly throw open the doors for the Brady Bunch. Creator Sherwood Schwartz pitched the concept for 3 years before the network reluctantly greenlit it. 3 years. Schwartz had actually based the premise on a real newspaper statistic. He'd read about the growing number of blended families in America, so he believed in the idea deeply. But network executives kept passing. It wasn't until ABC had a hole in their Friday night schedule and needed something fast that they finally said yes. The show they almost skipped became one of the most rerun series in television history. Imagine the executive who passed on it the first time, sitting at home watching reruns in 1985. Number 12. Tiger the dog was a total nightmare on set. Every family has that one member who just can't behave at gatherings. For the Bradys, it was Tiger. The family dog looked adorable on screen, but behind the scenes, he was apparently an absolute menace. According to multiple cast members, Tiger was difficult to work with, prone to running off during takes, and generally uninterested in following directions. The situation got bad enough that the dog was written off the show fairly early, and they quietly retired the character after the first season. But here's the kicker. Tiger's doghouse stayed in the backyard set for the entire run of the show. You can spot it in the background of exterior shots across multiple seasons, just sitting there. A silent monument to the dog who couldn't hack it in Hollywood. Number 11. Robert Reed hated almost every episode. Mike Brady, the patient, wise, perfect Baratian, was played by Robert Reed, and Robert Reed, bless him, was absolutely miserable doing it. Reed was a classically trained stage actor who had serious dramatic ambitions. He found the show's scripts unrealistic and frequently sent long, detailed memos to the producers arguing against plot points on the grounds of logical and scientific impossibility. Yes, he wrote memos about Brady Bunch plot logic. He and Sherwood Schwartz reportedly clashed constantly. Reed was actually written out of the final episode of the series because of a particularly intense disagreement. And yet, when you watch the show, he's warm, credible, and completely convincing as a father. That, my friends, is what professionalism looks like. Number 10. Florence Henderson almost didn't get the role. Before Florence Henderson became the definitive TV mom of a generation, Carol Brady wasn't necessarily hers to lose. The role was considered by several actresses before Henderson was cast, and the character herself went through some significant development. In the original concept, Carol Brady was actually written as a divorcee, which would have made the Brady Bunch the first primetime network show to feature a divorced parent in the lead. ABC got cold feet and changed the backstory to leave Carol's past deliberately vague. Henderson, for her part, brought a warmth and a casual elegance to the role that made Carol feel like someone's actual mom rather than a sitcom prop. She later said she modeled the character partly on her own sense of what a supportive, present mother looked like. Number 9. Barry Williams had a real crush on Florence Henderson. And speaking of Florence Henderson, here's one that's more sweet than scandalous, but absolutely worth knowing. Barry Williams, who played oldest son Greg Brady, was a teenager during the show's run. And as teenagers are historically known to do, he developed a genuine crush on his TV mom. Henderson has talked about this openly and warmly over the years. She even went on a dinner date with him once, which she later described as completely innocent, but admitted she probably shouldn't have agreed to. Williams wrote about it in his memoir. What makes the whole thing endearing rather than awkward is the way both of them have always discussed it with humor and affection. It was a teenage crush. It went nowhere, and it became one of the show's most charming behind-the-scenes footnotes. Number 8. The Brady house exterior isn't what you think. If you've ever looked up the real Brady Bunch house, you've seen it, that distinctive split-level home in Studio City, California. HGTV actually purchased it in 2018 and did a full renovation special. But here's the thing. The exterior of that house and the interior sets had absolutely nothing to do with each other. The inside of the Brady home was built entirely on a soundstage at Paramount Studios and looked nothing like what you'd actually find inside that Studio City house. The real house didn't even have a second second floor for most of its existence. Filmmakers just used the exterior for establishing shots and then cut to the studio set. The house became so iconic in real life that fans would regularly drive past it, take photos, and knock on the door, much to the confusion and occasional irritation of whoever actually lived there. Number 7. Jan Brady's iconic line was almost cut.
Marcia, Marcia, Marcia!
Words that have taken on a life far beyond the episode that spawned them. Eve Plum, who played Jan, has said that the line almost didn't make it into the final cut because producers worried it was too over the top. The episode, Her Sister's Shadow, aired in 1971 and dealt with Jan's frustration at constantly being overshadowed by her older sister. The writers thought the triple repetition might seem too theatrical. They kept it in, obviously, and what felt like a borderline too much choice became one of the most quoted lines in sitcom history. The phrase entered the cultural vocabulary so completely that it's now shorthand for sibling jealousy in general. Eve Plum has carried that line with grace and good humor for over 50 years. Jan Brady deserved her moment. Number 6. The kids weren't allowed to date each other until they were adults. Behind the scenes, the show's producers had an unofficial rule that the young cast members should not date each other during production, which honestly sounds like something every responsible production should enforce. But of course, teenagers being teenagers, feelings developed anyway. What's interesting is what happened after the show ended. Several cast members went on to date and spend real time together as adults. Barry Williams, Christopher Knight, and Maureen McCormick have all spoken about various real-life connections that developed over the years. McCormick's memoir, released in 2016, was particularly candid about the emotional dynamics within the cast during filming. The Brady kids grew up together on screen and off, and the relationships, the real ones, were considerably more complicated than anything the scripts ever explored. Number 5, Sherwood Schwartz based the whole show on a newspaper clipping. We touched on this briefly, but it deserves its own moment because the origin story is genuinely fascinating. In the mid-1960s, Sherwood Schwartz read a small item in the Los Angeles Times reporting that roughly 30% of American marriages at the time involved at least one partner who had children from a previous relationship. 30%. That was a significant slice of American family life that television was almost entirely ignoring. Schwartz decided to build a show around that reality. He wanted it to feel optimistic and functional, a blended family that actually worked, because he believed that's what audiences needed to see. In that sense, The Brady Bunch wasn't escapist fantasy so much as aspirational realism. It was saying, hey, new kinds of families can be whole family. That was a quieter kind of progressive statement than it might seem today. Number 4. The show was rejected by every network except one. We know ABC eventually picked it up, but the full story of how many times Schwartz was turned down before that is genuinely astonishing. By his own account, The Brady Bunch was rejected by CBS and NBC before ABC finally said yes. And even ABC's yes came with conditions, changes, and significant skepticism. Part of the hesitation across the board was that blended family storylines were considered too complicated for a family sitcom audience. Networks wanted clean, simple dynamics. The idea of a widower and a widow combining their broods struck executives as messy territory. What's ironic is that the show's blended family setup became the very thing that made it stand out and eventually made it a cultural touchstone. The thing they were afraid of was the thing that worked. Number 3, a very famous director got his start on The Brady Bunch. Here's the career crossover worth knowing. John Rich, who had already directed episodes of The Dick Van Dyke Show and All in the Family, worked on The Brady Bunch in its early seasons. But the more surprising connection is that director John Landis, who would go on to direct Animal House, The Blues Brothers, and An American Werewolf in London, has spoken about watching and studying shows like The Brady Bunch as part of his formative education in television production. And on the acting side, several Brady Bunch guest stars turned up later in unexpected places. Ken Osmond, who played Eddie Haskell on Leave It to Beaver, was a recurring presence in that television world. The interconnected web of 1960s and 70s television was tighter than most people realize. Number 2, Maureen McCormick and Barry Williams. Both auditioned for the wrong roles. This one is a genuine piece of casting trivia that changes how you see the whole ensemble. When the original auditions were held, The roles weren't perfectly matched to the actors right away. Barry Williams auditioned and was considered for multiple parts before landing Greg. Maureen McCormick, who became the definitive Marcia Brady, similarly went through a process that wasn't as straightforward as it might seem in retrospect. The chemistry reads that eventually locked in the final 6 kids took real time to get right. Schwartz was meticulous about making the ensemble feel like a believable unit. What's remarkable is how completely right the final casting feels. It's almost impossible to imagine any of those 6 roles played by anyone else. But there were other kids who came very close to being the Brady children that America grew up. Number 1, The Brady Bunch was a ratings disappointment that became an immortal classic. Save the best for last, and this one genuinely earns the top spot. When The Brady Bunch aired its final episode in March of 1974, it had never been a massive ratings hit. Not once during its 5-season run did it crack the top 25 most watched shows on television. ABC canceled it without much ceremony. By conventional network standards, it was a modest performer at best. And then something happened. Syndication. The show was sold into reruns and began airing in afternoon time slots across the country throughout the late 1970s. The ratings in syndication dwarfed anything the show had achieved in its original run. What couldn't win in primetime became essential in reruns. The Brady Bunch didn't become a classic while it was on the air. It became one after, and there you have it. 13 weird, wonderful, and genuinely surprising facts about one of television's most enduring family. Drop a comment and tell me which fact hit you hardest. And until next time, stay curious, stay nostalgic, and we'll see you on the next one.